Hi, this is Growing Up Aspen with Andy Collin and Chris Pomeroy. We're starting season two. Where are they now? With a bunch of our friends that we grew up with to give you a real idea of the effect Aspen had on some of us kids. What did we get and where did we go? So here we are with Ben Ball. Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about how you ended up in LA and what do you do and what have you been doing since you graduated Aspen High School?
Maybe start with your journey to where you are.
I went to college in Boulder, University of Colorado. Didn't get into this college as I wanted to. So I was like, all right, I'll go to Colorado for a while. And then I kind of just had a real distaste for it because of the music, because that's just so my whole identity was wrapped around the kind of music I listened to at the time, and Boulder wasn't serving up what I wanted. It was all just hippie bands, jam bands, and the Dead, and I was like, this is stuff my aunt listened to.
For live music, yeah, because they had
more
albums
Eagles
on the hill, yeah.
They did. I mean,
hill.
You know, in hindsight, I saw a lot of really great bands in Boulder that were, went on to have illustrious careers. I mean, I saw the Flaming Lips in like a tiny little bar, and you could tell, I mean, that they were onto something that was beyond the kind of punk norm at the time. They were just kind of drawing a line back to kind of psychedelia, but doing it in this kind of crazy freak rock way that seemed entirely current. And so I saw stuff like that there. And I was a DJ at the radio station. I was in plays. I was in the College of Environmental Design, which is basically architecture light. And I had good friends, but I left Boulder and then came out to California, to Southern California Institute of Architecture. Again, thinking I wouldn't stay long, but I thought I'd just graduate from here and then head to New York or head to Portland or somewhere, but I ended up staying. I've done a lot of things here since I was a student of architecture. While I was a student, I fortunately, or maybe depending on how you look at it, maybe not, but fortunately I was able to get an agent and get in a lot of television commercials and was auditioning all the time. And I'd been actor in college as well in Boulder and somewhat in Aspen, and I was like, should I do this? But I was already committed to doing architecture, so I just stayed on that route. But I've always had friends in LA who have been actors, musicians, writers, artists. I got tired of being a kind of conventional architect and started making sculpture and installation. And that's really what led me to this.
You did some set design and stuff too for a while, didn't you?
I did I mean, I'm getting so old that these periods in my life, it's like 7 years worth mentioning, right? It was quite a while, from the mid 90s, early 90s until 2000 or so. I worked on a lot of commercials. I was in the union and worked on a lot of big movies. Not a lot of big movies, that's not accurate. A lot of big commercials, but some big movies, The Matrix, 2 and 3, a lot of music videos, which really set the stage, so to speak, no pun intended, for me doing what I do today, because it was something that was sort of architecture adjacent, but it had a different kind of different sort of set of rules that you operate by, and that operating method has become how I work today.
Well, it
And
sounds
my
like
studio.
now you do installations and art projects on a large scale.
Yeah. I mean, some people still view me as an architect because that's my training, but these are commissioned artworks, public commissions, often in really vast spaces. And I think that, just given my training, you kind of, when your canvas becomes like an airport terminal, it's good to have an architect is sort of knows what to expect when going into working in a space like that. Can kind of work with space at that scale. Whereas, maybe if you're trained as a sculptor or painter, you may not be as comfortable working.
well, it also
working at that size.
in my industry, there's a big difference between commercial and gallery and all these other things. And so when you're hitting these different, if you go through the chain of all those different areas, then it opens you up for a much bigger thing, which it sounds like that's what you pull from, is all those different experiences that you had. You know what I mean? In other words, if you just went to school and you just did that, probably wouldn't be able to do what you do if you didn't go through the hoops and see a lot of the stuff that you did see.
Yeah, that's right. No, I wouldn't have. It all adds up to what I do today, all the way back to being in theater and around theater as a kid. The lighting, the costumes, the sets, the artifice of it. Realizing at a really young age that there were people that thought about these things. There were people that did this kind of stuff, and thought about this stuff very deeply, and built lives around it. Whereas, maybe if I'd come to it a little bit later, or been exposed to that stuff later in life, I wouldn't have had that realization wouldn't have sunk in the same kind of way. So for sure, it all adds up to what I do, because it's not that different than, in at least in terms of the structure of my studio, to say like a resident set designer at an opera or something. You've got a team of people building. You're very connected to the building process. You're working with space. You're working with light, which is something I do as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. The bench competition thing that you got into, is my mom's best friend is the one who helped put that on in Manhattan Beach and set that up.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And wow. How did you know about that?
So it's the crazy. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon right here, man.
Right, man. Wow. Yeah, that's a good program, that you could get this private money to come in and make these benches.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like the one we built, like somebody skated it really badly and kind of fucked up the finish on it, because it's really built like a skateboard with, gel coated fiberglass, and so we had to install these like skate proof things on it, these little skate guards. And that's crazy. I had no idea about that, Andy. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My world is so weird because it bumps into, so you worked on The Matrix. The guy who they hired to do the spiders that attacked the ships was a friend of mine, Webster Colcourt, who I met here working at Will Vinton Studios. So it's like, it's the worlds cross, and
so what did he do, that guy? What did he do in The Matrix?
Okay, so one of his big projects that he did his own was called The Host. It was a Korean film where he did all the effects himself.
Yeah.
And when he did that, they were like, holy crap. So they hired him on Matrix 2 to do, because there was a lot of spaceships where they were coming in, the monsters were coming in and attacking them, the big spider things that would come out. He did what really sealed the deal for him was the spiders he did in Minority Report. Remember the eyes? He gets in the tub and then the little spiders are searching for him. they were like, okay, if you can do that, we need you in too. And so he ended up working on the team with some of the folks doing that. But those shots with the eyeballs, that was his shot where they were looking for his eyes and he's hiding in the bathtub. It's kind of cool.
What was his name?
Webster Colcord. Webster Colcord. He's a I would say he's one of those, it's really hard to do, but he's a very independent kind of creator, and he could do commercial work that's clean and whatever, but he can also do rough and really cool stuff too. So it's hard for people to float. Like I've seen a lot of film directors that did really cool indie films that got them acknowledged, like Drugstore Cowboy with Gus Van Sant. But then once you go do Good Will Hunting, I'm sorry, but Elephant isn't anything like good Drugstore Cowboy. It's trying to do that, but the problem is when you get to Hollywood, they tell you, oh, you got to use this film cinematographer, you got to use this lighting guy, you got to use this person and that person. So the team that you had was really your friends, your buddies, and it's a different vibe, and it's hard to go one way and the other,
Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people's filmmaking skills don't necessarily scale up to big productions. They don't know how to work.
It's a different beast.
Comfortable working with it's a different animal, and a studio movie.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like, that's a director at that of something like kind of 90s independent cinema is like an auteur.
Right.
They're the control. They write it, they direct it, they might shoot it, they might act in it, produce it, all this stuff. Then they would huge, layers of
There's a few people that have tried to go back to do independent, like Fitcher and a couple other folks, and I felt, oh man, I saw each one of their films, and I'm like, I mean, I respect the guy as a director, but man, it's like it's hard to go back to your roots, and unless you have like the same folk to do that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good exercise. I mean, people. I ask that of myself occasionally. I work on things that have budgets. Substantial budgets, and I have engineers and I have very skilled people that work for me. Like sometimes I'll work on a project and it's like I don't lift a finger, I just am telling people what to do, and I start to wonder, like, God, where is my, it's still I'm directing the project, but I'm not really hands-on on anything, and kind of pining maybe for a project and the challenge of doing something where I'm entirely responsible for every step of the project.
I run my studio in a different way. In other words, I have my hands on the project, but I have a lot of really talented people, like you're saying. And so I don't rely, I know they're going to do good stuff. And where we massage it, I come in and sort of help do that. And so I like to feel like most of the projects that come through our studio, people like, who's the director? And I feel like, well, I'm the director, but it really is sort of a collaborative process that I approach, the way I approach things. Yeah. So in a way, everybody gets a little credit, but at the same time, I'm the one sort of saying, well, let's do this, let's do that, and I feel like it's the best way to go, because when you're done and you're finished, everybody's sort of contributed to this piece.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say with what you're doing, it's even more important than what I'm doing. I mean, in some ways, I need people that can execute, right? Like this is the thing, you got to make it, craft it, right? But in your case, the crafting and the idea are integral.
Part of the same,
like if you were doing, like animation, what's the inflection of that character's mouth? Well, the person that's drawing it is it's not just that, you don't just tell them make a smile out of the side of their mouth. It's like which version of that do you want? There's 1,000 ways to do that. So everybody's got a place in, I would imagine, in animation projects.
Well, and there's a certain type of person that likes to be an animator, and that is somebody who they're not animating to make the movie necessarily. A lot of times they're animating to animate. Period.
Yeah.
And then the movie is the end product of it, but it's just the joy of the process,
Yeah, for sure.
You heard like Disney always had the water guy, right? They did all the water for their movies and all that stuff. And I felt like at Vinton's there also were some folks, the Clay, California Raisins guys. There's always people that were really good at just the characters, good at this, good at that. And so there were people that kind of got to be specialists, but I feel like, to me, when you're working on a project like that and you do have a group of people, it is sort of a team thing, and I enjoy it. I really enjoy the team thing for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I like working for teams. I mean, I like working with teams.
Thanks for listening. The authors of Growing Up Aspen would like to thank you, and would like to also thank the Aspen Times and the Aspen Daily News for giving us materials for our book, Growing Up Aspen, Adventures of the Unsupervised, which you can get at twistandturnpress.com and any local bookstore. Thanks.